Good evening, it's Aaron with Bowtie Treasures. How's everybody doing tonight, this fine Saturday night, January 2nd? The year just getting started, and what a better way to get started with some fun projects, some painting. And I'm so happy to be on again with y'all. Got quite a bit of work to do on this project. We're gonna move fast tonight, and I'm so ready to go. Let me just review the tentative plan for this project, and we'll change it as we need to, but I've already put a coat of Bunker Hill Blue on this Chippendale Mahogany Serpentine desk, and it's definitely old. I don't know the exact age, but I went ahead and put a Bunker Hill Blue on it, and it's a little bit of a vibrant blue, not quite cobalt blue, but it's definitely bright. We're going to totally tone it down, work on some layers. I've done this technique before. It's probably been maybe 6 months or so since I've done this. And every time I do it, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to be showing you how I would add some layers. I have put in the comments that this is somewhat of an advanced technique. My recommendation is you stop and you do the layers as you see fit for your piece, meaning you might just say, hey, I just want to do a couple of these. I'm going to go a little bit further than that. In fact, if we can, I don't know if I have time to do it tonight, but I just got the new gilding waxes in. I'm a huge fan of gilding wax, and I'm probably going to put some of that on this piece. It just may not be tonight because we're going to do so many layers that a lot of it has to dry and things like that. We'll see, but I'm excited about that. So again, I've already done Bunker Hill Blue on this. And two, French linen. Kind of weird. Why are we going from blue to cream? Well, the cream is going to be a wash. We're just going to put it on there to tone the colors down, bring in some depth, kind of going complement color a little bit. It's kind of weird. Then we will come back with Yankee Blue. The Yankee Blue is more of a, you can see the colors here. Yankee Blue is a little bit more of a subdued blue. And for some deepening and some depth, some shading, I'm probably going to use In the Navy. If it doesn't give me enough depth, I'm going to switch over to Caviar, which I didn't pull out because I think In the Navy is going to work. And again, to top it all off, we'll grab some gilding wax if we have time. So I definitely recommend that you follow me on Facebook or Instagram. You always get to see some progress pics, the finished pictures, things like that. So let's get going. I'm going to move some things around and get ready to go. I've got a few brushes and we're just going to kind of pick and choose. Now let me just tell you some prep I've done on this piece, and I don't always get to do all the prep on the lives because it's just such a long process, but I have cleaned it with White Lightning, and then I went over it with Dixie Belle's new gray Boss, and that just gives it a nice solid foundation for the paint to go on. That part's already done, and so we're ready to go. I will also show you, I'm going to spin it around. I get questions about painting the backs of pieces. Well, this piece is an example of when I would paint the back. Notice that the back has decorative pieces and panels. When they've done this, the intention is that probably this could sit in the middle of the room. So I'm painting the back with the intention that probably it's meant to be seen. And you can also tell that the feet and the back are just as decorative as the front. Usually these would just be posts, so this is intended to be two-sided. So that's an indication of when I would use, when I would paint both sides. Once again, this is not a bad color. We could stop here. You know, I wouldn't have a problem doing it, but we're going to add more advanced techniques on this overall. Also, by the way, I have blue painter's tape across the top. It looks kind of weird right now, but basically I'm keeping the original stained top because it's so pretty. I didn't want to mess that up. So that's not really part of something I'm doing at all with it. So I just taped it off so I don't get any paint on it. I know that's a lot of introduction, but you kind of have to set this foundation for what we're doing, and I'm ready to go. I did remember one thing I need to get. Besides a mister bottle, I may do more of a spray bottle. So I'm going to keep that handy as part of our technique. And this is just, you can get a Dixie Belle Mister bottle. I recommend you have one of those because it just helps keep your paint smooth throughout the process that you're working on. All I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take our French linen, and I chose French linen because it's one of the darkest creams that you can get with the Dixie Belle line. And so this part here really isn't any kind of measuring or scientific process. All I'm going to do is wing it. So let's do this. I'm just going to take, I have a cup of water, and when I say wash, really it's going to be a wash. I'm going to take just a little bit of water, whatever container, you're just looking for a really thin, and I'm just going to take a little bit of paint. Okay, trying to find me. There we go. Okay, so just a little bit of paint on my brush, and I'm just going to move that around the water, okay? I'd probably say this is about a little less than 1/4 of a cup. Based on some previous experience, I'm just kind of winging it. But I really do want a nice, let's show this here. I just want a nice wet, okay? Not thick. All right, so let's start with the side that's easy. The drawers are not easy, okay? So we'll start with this side. Now, keep in mind you can wipe this off, go thick, go thin, you can do whatever you want. It's really your technique, so I definitely recommend that you just have fun at it. And all we are trying to do here is tone down the chalk paint and give it a little bit of warmth. We're going to be covering this up with another color, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You see how it's just kind of halfway between, it's definitely not opaque, but I'm not trying to create a drippy boho look. I'm going for a classy, I guess worn. Sometimes this technique might come across, and then I go back. Sometimes this technique comes out looking a little bit like denim. So I like to do the brush strokes vertical. I don't want to go side to side, and those things will kind of settle down. If you don't like any of that, or you want to create a vignette with it, just take your rag and dabble in it. I don't want to do that. I'm going to let this go just like that, okay? Okay, so we're just going to swing around. I need to go ahead and stand up, I can tell. So sometimes if you watch a lot of my videos or seen some of my videos, I have wiped off, I've come back and wiped that out, but I don't want to do that. I want to, and the wiping usually happens because I either have too much or it's too wet, whatever. This is one of those you just have to trust it because it's definitely not for the faint at heart. You might say, well, I ruined it. It's going to take on different feels. So what I would recommend is do one side, let it dry, and then if you don't like it, you could quickly put a coat of paint over it before you do your entire piece and just see how the technique works for you. But I like the paint getting in the grooves, so I'm going back, just smoothing those out. Okay. Now sometimes what I'll find is I do need to go back later on and just take a peek to see if anything unexpected and undesirable is happening, and so far it's doing pretty good. All right, so we're still on the back, but you just move quickly. And part of my problem is I forget you guys are, I don't forget, but I forget about the camera. I have had some issues lately, I think with some cables and adapters that I'm using, that the camera disconnects if I try and move it around so much. So I apologize, I'm not bringing you guys super close. So some of these angles will be a little bit non-super informative, but you know what process I'm doing. So right now I'm just going back. What I'm hoping, what usually happens, is if I can do this right, by the time I get around the entire project, the first place I painted will be dry and we can keep going. All right, so let me just smooth this out and then we'll get back to where you guys can really see. But you get a good idea of how I would do this project. Quick. Don't sweat it too much. Let it all just kind of work out. When you go back over like I'm doing, light hand. Don't push too hard because that's going to keep the brush strokes. Still have plenty of liquid, so we're doing great. Yeah, so again, this process that I'm doing right now is really just to kind of give it some layers, some depth. I'm not expecting a lot of it to be seen, but it'll show up, especially the crevices. Right now I'm causing a shadow, so I'll move around. I am going to, looks like I'm going to be running low on, I'm going to have to remix some color. So the nice thing is if you're going to ever run out of the wash, try to finish, don't do it halfway through a drawer front or a panel. Try to gauge your colors. I really didn't know how much I was going to need. So light hand all the way top to bottom, just drag it. And you know, imagine what this would look like. I haven't tried it, you know, but what if you did this in like vintage duck egg or some bold color? Okay, it's getting a little wet down here. So I am going to dabble just a little bit to take some of the excess off, but I am going to go back and smooth that out because I don't want those rag. It was just allowing me to thin it out a little bit. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, if you tried this with some crazy colors, you could stop at this point. Okay, I can tell I put too much on there. It's having a hard time making them go away. More real life for you right there. All right, let's go back and take a look just to see how the previous sections are looking. Make sure that I don't have any crazy, see like I have this few little drips. I'm okay with that. See how it's beating up along the edge? If that's too much paint, you could just touch it, maybe run your finger along it, but to be honest with you, it's probably best just to leave it because your paints should already be drying by this point and you don't want to disrupt that. I could see one spot I need to get in here and towards the front. Looking good, guys. The more imperfections, the more custom this will look, right? And it's a work of art. All right, so I think I have enough. Let me just do the feet. I think that would be fine. Since there's a lot of shelves, the paint can kind of want to go underneath. So it might be good when you're done to go back after the first round and maybe pull the drawer out carefully and wipe off. But I would recommend you let the paint dry first. Don't pull it out while things are wet, because you'll smear your sides and things like that. Got my rag handy, my mini, I mixed my brush. So here's where I don't know exactly how my consistency is. So this will be the first one that I do. I don't want to slather too much water in the cracks. And have your rag handy. It's a little thin. It's a little thin. Okay. Again, this is trial and error, so I'm just going to grab a little bit more paint because I don't really want to fight too thin. Okay, thick is better. And I'm using my brush to mix. It's probably the best tool. I would hate to use a stick or something. All right, I think that's a little bit better, just a little thicker. And I'm pushing it to the edges. I'm not going to pull the, okay, I get questions about do you paint the sides? Usually if the drawer is set in, I don't paint the sides. So in this case, I'm going to leave it wood. So this mix is a little bit thicker, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do is quickly go over all of this, just like I'm doing now, and then I'm going to dab it off and then go back and smooth it out. I think that'll be the best method right now. It's a little too boho drippy for me. Trust me, I love some boho drippy. I should do another boho drippy piece soon, but usually for me it's the pieces that I get are what inspire the technique. This piece would not be very good with boho. And by the way, this is such great texture. You might try this technique and just leave the texture, but we've been going with this more. So I'm getting water gathered down there. So I removed some of the paint with my rag, and now I'm just going back and light smoothing, light touch, light hand. And keeping my consistent stroke. And I'm looking for any place that I missed as well. So if you want to take your furniture painting beyond the basics of just two layers and be done, this is a fun thing to try. And you have to be willing to take chances, because if you're scared of messing up, this is not the technique for you, because this is all about messing up. I mean, this is a mess right now. Does that make sense? Not in a bad mess, but you have to be willing to splatter some paint and make mistakes and build some random layers, because it's all going to come out looking legit when we're done. This is the kind of finish that you see artists do and you go, how did they get that technique? And that's what I want. At the end of the day, if I'm drooling over my piece, then I'm done. It's not so critical what other people think, but we are in the business of painting pieces that people like, right? If you're in the business to sell furniture, that would be you. Keep in mind right now that I am painting this piece blue because I feel like it's appropriate for the time period. I feel like the blue is a little classier. I did a French provincial china cabinet, kind of in, yeah, pretty much this type of technique, and it looks so good. I just felt like this really had to go. Had to do it again. All right, I think, and see, if I go over another section, you're adding more paint, it's just going to get lighter. So you don't really want to go too much over previous work. Okay, let's just take a quick round. I'm gonna get out of the way and see if I missed anything. Of course, there is no doubt, y'all, that I'm missing spots as I did earlier when I missed the leg. But I'm just looking for anything, drips. You know, right now I have no drips. In fact, I can still see my first coat through here, which is what I want. Looks like I missed a little bit along this edge. I just want to get some paint on there. Okay. If you think you missed it, just, it's not going to hurt it to have a little extra wash. Wash is the key word, okay? I'm not putting thick paint on right now at all. We've got a pretty heavy thing going on here, but it's kind of already drying. And because I know I'm going over it again, it's all good. See how I have a little bead down here? I'm gonna just kind of take up some of that extra water. One of the reasons for that is because I know I want to do another layer, and the sooner this can dry, the better off we are. Because I don't like too much busting out a heat gun or hair dryer. But in order for me to do this complex technique, I do have to kind of do some drying here in a little bit. Yankee Blue. All right, so this one, you have to decide at this point, are you washing another wash? Are you going ahead? You don't want to put a hard, an opaque color over it because you'll lose all that. So really the next step is, again, another wash. So there's some other options you could try. You could get just a little bit of paint on your brush, wet this down, and just thin it out. I think that's what I'd like to try, because it's going to give you a different technique than the last one rather than just washing and washing. And so let's give that a try. If we don't like that, how that looks, we'll do something else. All right, so here's where I'm going to use more of a water bottle, because the mister is just misting. The water bottle's putting water on there a little bit more purposeful. So there's a little bit of wetness down here. That's quite all right, but this panel's doing really good. All right, so on this technique, instead of mixing a mixture of water, we're going to put the water on the piece and a little paint on our brush, and we're just going to see how that looks, okay? So just a nice, this is like a mega sprayer. I don't even know where I got it, but okay. So, and I didn't put much paint on my brush, but because the piece is fairly wet, it's almost like I'm putting another wash, but it's a little bit thicker. So what you're accomplishing with this one is you're adding yet another color to your piece in a wash, and you still have the benefit of seeing all the 3 layers you've put on already, but we've toned it down. Unfortunately, I don't have a board here that I can say, here's what it looked like when we started. So maybe after the video is over, you can skip around. But I think hopefully you can see, let me see if I can find an angle. It's just a much more muted grayer blue. But through it, I can still see the first coat. I can still see some of my wash. You are the creator at this point, where you can determine how much of this you want to do. But be careful that you don't go too soon, because you really do want some of those previous colors to dry, and some of them are still wet, but that's okay. I really want the result of this to be almost like an unknown, how did he get that look? Or look at all those layers. You want the customer to look at it and kind of be pulled in a little bit. That's a better description. You want them to be pulled in and let the piece invite their eyes to just wonder how they... So at this point, if you want, you could think about some texture. You could dabble it. This rag has a good bit of texture. I could leave it like that. It's really up to you. I was just doing that to maybe pull a little paint off. You can wipe the paint off your brush a little bit. And one thing to also think about is when you go to top coat this, it'll also make your colors pop really well too. So just a little bit of paint, trusting the water. Now I can tell you I'm painting a little too fast here. I probably should have dried it off, but that's okay. We're gonna run with it. but I am reactivating a little bit of the wash I did earlier, but that's all right. There are no rules here, just fun. Just creating spontaneous. This is fun, right? This is stress-free creativity at its finest. On furniture, you can do this on home decor, it doesn't really matter. It could be a candlestick or some other kind of, but I am totally just adding layers. If you like what your rag did, don't wipe too much of it off. Not seeing a huge change right now, but that's good. It's all about the layers. If I showed you this before and after and didn't tell you how I did it, you probably would be at a loss to figure it out. And that's perfectly what I want. All right, I'm going to check the side just to see. It's set up pretty good. Just another, so this is just a color tone change. You're not going to see it because the color is so close to what I've done. You're not going to see a huge change. So, but I'm loving it. This is the part I have a hard time for you guys to see. Sorry, but you can at least see my technique's the same. If you're feeling anything like the brush grabbing, you're either putting too much paint on or it's not, you didn't spray enough. You can spray your brush. I don't want to cover up all that work. All right, one more, let me do this. I'm gonna spin this around so I can get that other side. It's much easier to paint when you're painting with your dominant right hand. So I'm gonna do that here. I'm moving at a pretty good pace, hopefully not too fast for you to follow what I'm doing. That's parts done. Let's go to the star of the show, and that is the front. Because the paint was put on so thin, it does allow for you to do these techniques because the thin paint, you know, the water evaporates, so things thin out. I just like a little bit of that texture personally, so the rag, some texture on it. And then you could always just calm that down. If you like, you can also do texture. Let's do that again. And you can come back with your misting bottle. And if you spray it with water, it'll diffuse that texture too. Okay. All right, so let's do this right. Let's go down the right side. Even the spray, even your water spray can add texture to your piece. So that's kind of cool if you want to introduce some of that. I'm really loving the cream. I'm not actually what I'm going to do on this piece, on the drawers. I'm not going to put this color over the middle. I think it'll be cool to make it look like it's worn. Not too much paint. We'll let the middle show some of that. Get my stool out so I can get down. I want to tone this front down just a little bit. So you can see, it's a little wet, but you can see right there how the color is mostly around the outside edges. All right, so we're still working on the Yankee Blue. And it's just putting it mostly around the edges of the drawer. About the same place that I'm going to be doing in the navy next. But I really need this stuff to dry. But I'm hoping, so far so good, most of the work has been drying by the time I get around the other side. And I'm just going to dabble, add some texture to that paint so it doesn't have too many brush strokes around the middle, and that's going to be cool. Remember, our goal right now is to kind of disguise technique, and the layers are definitely going to do that. I wish I could tell you it really does look better in person. I'm watching the camera, so I'm pretty excited about it. There we go. Maybe 1/4 of an inch wide. You could probably do something larger. The larger the brush, the more paint you're putting down. And then this is the French, Dixie Belle's French natural brush. I love it for these small blending areas. Another brush you could use is the Belle brush. Kind of the same idea. So pretty simple, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to run some paint. I just loaded up my brush. I sprayed first, and all I'm doing right now is accenting. Accenting these panels. Let's see if I can get enough paint on this. And I can tell when it's not really going quickly or smoothly. I either don't have enough paint or I didn't spray. So I'm putting a decent amount of paint down. Here we go. That's it. That's all I'm doing with that is putting it down. And then I'm just going to keep it. You got to keep this wet. Do not let this dry on you, okay? I'm going to wet my brush. And now I'm just going to soften it out. And you know what? I had another idea I think I want to try too. So let me demonstrate this, and then I'm going to do something else. Because I had an idea earlier, but I think this piece would look cool if I do it. So anytime that it's not moving, it's not wet enough, okay? This is where I was saying I might go do caviar if it's not dark enough. And I'm going to wipe off anything on the above the crease. Oops, where did that paint come from? I just goobered my piece. That's an official technique term, goobered. All right, so see if we could see that. It's probably going to be better when it dries, but I think sometimes I've done this before where in the Navy might not be dark enough. It all comes down to how much contrast you want down there. You have probably seen others do this with wax, but I love the paint. Okay, if you'd like to bring the eye up on your piece, sometimes it's cool to, and let's use the misting bottle, is to put a darker color at the bottom and slowly fade it up. And I'm using the misting bottle because I don't want super thick, although it's going on thick. And I'm just demonstrating this on the back. So I'm putting a decent amount of paint on here, almost too much, but anything you don't want. And then bring that up. And almost like, because it was close to the ground, it got dirty. It's kind of a cool technique that you can try. It's almost like I'm shading You know, so you can get more dramatic with the lower section. And I'm using the oval small right now. And I'm not blending because there's nothing to blend into. There's no wet paint except for the paint I'm putting on. So that's kind of a cool effect. And if it's too much, we've been doing it all night, dab it a little bit. Just soften it. But so what you're gonna wind up with is just a moody, just feather it. Light hand, you see that stroke that just accidentally happened? That's because there's too much paint in one section of the brush. We need to squelch that creativity. That was not in the plan. So misting. So this is if you want to do a little bit more paint than what I was doing around the edges. And I think that's going to be a cool look. It just gives it a little bit more drama, because now what will happen is the eye will start be drawing up to the natural wood, and I'll do that around the doors. So that's just a really quick idea. I'm loving the texture that's happening. So you just have to decide how far do you want to go, and should it match the other side. And let me get my rag. This is a little much over here, and I'm putting paint down. Has anybody else spilled paint before? Oh, I did a really doozy a couple years ago. I had to replace my wife's carpet. That was not fun. All right, so now I'm going to do a quick misting. I'm just going to go vertical. I've already put the base of the paint down. I dabbed it a little bit. If you want more drama, I would recommend probably the next color be Caviar. When that dries, it'll do really well. So you add as much drama as you like. I'm not going for any kind of perfect blend. The water will help you do that. I need to fix this right here. A little over brushing from the other side. Okay. We have just enough time for me to say goodbye. And then I will clean up my mess. Well, what do y'all think? We good? We did a lot. We worked fast. We put 4 layers, four colors, 3 colors. And that was pretty intense. I still have some more work to do to get all that shading done. I didn't get to the gilding wax, so stay tuned to see how I do on that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for letting others know about this, checking out my website, and until next time, I will see you guys again soon.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.